Here I go. Does it say that it's recording? Yeah, here we go. It's recording now. So what I'm introducing is, and you know what? We're gonna take some time for Cassius at one point to. You got to get me up to speed with the way that you play around with your profile image there, Cassius.
I just have a digital webcam that's taking like a screen capture of what like my monitor is doing.
We're gonna thoroughly go over this next class, okay?
All right.
Because I need to know how to change all those things.
It's him.
Good
morning, Logan. I mean Kanye.
Yo, what's up? I'm
It's
Kanye.
confusing for me as to which is what you guys are seeing and what you guys are okay. So we're going to be talking about low poly self-portraits. And I want to start off by saying that it really behooves you to go in there and fill out your questionnaire on the EDSB site, because it allows me to know what people are working with. I will be doing 2 demonstrations, one on Illustrator, and I will also be showing you how to do a low poly self-portrait on Pixlr, which is just accessed through any web browser. So I like, to be honest, I am quite pleased to get a chance to do some Pixlr stuff, because I know when I'm in a bind, I know now that I can actually do some Pixlr stuff on my phone, on any laptop I have. If it doesn't have Photoshop, I have access to basic Photoshop capabilities. So I'm excited to kind of show you guys that, get you comfortable with that. For starters, I'm just going to share my screen and take a look at low poly, some low poly artwork. It was not cooperating with me here. Let's come over here. Still not cooperating with me. Let's try again. Boom. It is not showing. Let's try this again. It's not fun when it doesn't work. Is it showing the low poly images right now?
We can see it, yeah.
Oh,
yep.
Okay. It was just it was not playing nicely with me. Okay, so here's a quick search of low polygram or low polygon portraiture, and there's some here that I would consider not great, and some that are awesome. And I would say, to begin with, the first thing that you should consider is a good photograph for your portrait. Now, it doesn't have to be a fabulous camera, it doesn't have to be a fabulous image, but there's some things that you should consider. And something that you should really look at is what I like to call contrast ratio. And contrast ratio, does anybody know what contrast ratio is?
How far apart one color is to the other?
This kind of photo has contrast ratio. This does not. This does not. This does. This does. This does not. This does not. This does. Does anybody know what contrast ratio is?
Like how far apart two colors are. That was my best guess.
I mean, it's related to that. Well, often when we talk contrast ratio, we are talking about the human face.
Oh, okay.
This is a good example of contrast ratio right here. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Nobody?
No, I think I understand. Like contrast ratio, maybe like one side of the face is darker and portrays a different type of feeling than
Right.
the other side.
So contrast ratio basically talks about the idea that the face, when it's lit from the side, cuts itself off. And so basically you have half the face at one lighting level and half the face at another lighting level. Now, it does not mean that all of one side has to be dark and all of one side has to be light. But what it does mean is if you have contrast ratio, then you have three-dimensional volume. And that makes an image more interesting. Okay, it adds a level of three-dimensionality to it. So you can see the contrast ratio here, and that doesn't mean it has to be really high. You can see that this has contrast ratio. It gives it three-dimensional volume, but it's not a high contrast ratio. Okay, it's a little bit darker on this side, a little lighter on this side. Okay, you can see contrast ratio here, and I think if you start off with a portrait that with a self-portrait that has some contrast ratio, you will be happier with your low poly drawing. That's your first sort of thing. We don't have to worry too much about the background. I think there's going to be a lot of options to do some creative backgrounds. You can see, you know, these different kind of backgrounds that people have done on different portraits, as well as where's the one? Where's it? Yeah, where things are kind of like breaking apart and so forth. So we don't have to worry about the background, but if you get a nice snap a nice picture of a face that has some contrast ratio, and you will be happy. You don't want to spend a whole bunch of time doing a low poly portrait of something that is not fun. And I say there's so many of these tutorials online, and this is not your friend. It's not, it does not, there's so much work that's going to go into it, and then in the end it's not going to you know, give you something that you think is cool or that's going to be a lasting image. You know, this is much more so. You can see that we got contrast ratio there too. We're lit from the side for one of those things. So experiment a little bit, snap a few pictures before you decide, oh, this is, you don't just flip through your phone, go, oh, I'm going to take the picture, I'm going to take this picture and low poly it. So that's my first tip. Second thing I'm going to say is I'm going to start off with an Illustrator tutorial on how to do it. I will be posting these tutorials here. I'll post 4 tutorials. This is one Illustrator tutorial. Here's another Illustrator tutorial. These two form sort of like one, and this was done by Mr. Price. This is another option. All of the ones on Illustrator, there's sort of like pluses and minuses to how you do it. In other words, sometimes it works well, sometimes it, you know, they all have their sort of like drawbacks. Then there's also the Photoshop style of low poly, which I'll be demonstrating, but I won't be demonstrating it on Photoshop today. I'll be demonstrating it on Pixlr, which is the web-based graphics software. That way, if you do not have access to the Adobe Suite, you'll be able to complete the low poly on Pixlr, which is accessible on almost every device. So I'm going to start by removing my screen share. I'm going to pop open Illustrator, and I will start with a dog here.
What the dog doing?
I'm just trying to get back to my window here. Okay, so share my screen. You guys can see. So here I am in Illustrator, and there are two different ways of doing this. I'm going to do one method for this half, and then I'll do another method for this half. And there's a couple of things that you can run into that can really sort of like cause some issues. So for the first half, what you can do is you can take a, so I dropped this image here, and a lot of times they would say that you want to create another layer on top. The way Illustrator is, you don't necessarily have that in another layer. When you create paths, it's going to pop it up top here. So, but people do like to, you know, have a layer that they can quickly shut on and off, and they'd call this low poly. And this is where we're going to do a little drawing on that layer. So I'll just sort of select that. And the first thing that people would suggest that you do is kind of do, I'll do my preferences here. In this method, they would say snap to point, snap to grid, show grid, and under preferences, guides and grids, we would turn the grids on so you can see it, or you can turn it off. Grids in back, hang on a second. Grids and guides, sorry, turn grids in back. I say, okay, so the grids behind there, and I will snap to that. So you can see, oops. You can see I'm snapping to these points, but I can't see them. That's your choice. But why am I putting this grid down? Because that way, let me see if I can. Hang on a second here. I got two zooms going on. I got the Illustrator zoom and I'm stuck in my Zoom world here. Why can't I zoom? There we go. Sorry. It's too many hotkeys for zooming here. Okay, so when you're doing this, you're gonna sort of like draw an outline around your, and before we do it, I'm just gonna turn off my stroke or my fill, and I'm gonna add a stroke of just something obnoxious like this green, and I'm also going to give it a stroke of 2 points. Let me just see, so that way I can see it. The stroke won't be there in the end. Sorry. Undid too much there. So when we're doing an outline like this, obviously the more dots that you choose, the more detailed it will be, and one of the options is to outline the whole thing first before you break it into triangles. So you can see I'm kind of going around like this, and it's snapping to those corners. There's sort of like a benefit to that, which I'll get into in a second. So now I've outlined that there. And now I would go through and outline sort of like all of the sort of main features now, and then I would come back and break these into triangles. But you have to be careful about this situation, is that when you come back to a point that you've, like, if I draw like this, it's nice that it snaps to this point here, because it's going to make us these easy sort of triangle shapes. But the problem is if I go here, 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 see, now I'm coming back here and it's giving us this minus sign, and that's going to delete that point, and we don't really want to do that. And so this technique, you can see that worked. And sometimes you'll be able to go like this, and I'm breaking this into polygons, and sometimes it won't, like it's so that one's now working there, broke that into a triangle. And you don't want to go to a non-point there. You can add a point. If I go to, can I add a point here? I'm not sure. And this icon, by the way, is different. It's got that slash. That means I'm going to be able to draw a line there. So I'm going to draw that line and connect it there. So now I actually have broken this all into triangles, and that worked. But prepare for a little bit of frustration, and you can avoid it if you're very careful and you watch that little icon there. That's a line, that's okay. The asterisk is also okay to draw from, but you do not want that dash, because this is what's going to happen. Okay, it's going to delete that point. Okay, so I can continue to break this down, and sometimes you get a nice good run where I go like this, find that point there, 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 and you can see this is becoming a very nice run here. And there. So now oops, close that off. So now I've got all of those triangles sort of created, and I can now select the path there. I'm going to select everything on that low poly layer, pull up Pathfinder, and I'm going to press divide. And that's going to sort of like mesh all of those points together. And so I'll close that up. And at this point, I will, see if I can turn this stroke off. So I turn my stroke off. Look at that. One click, stroke is off. And then I can drop down this, and we have all these paths, and these are all separated into little triangles. So boom, I just collect that one there. And I want to be on my direct select tool. Let's see if I can. And then I grab my eyedropper, and I'm going to pull my stroke to the front. Grab my eyedropper, and I just go on to the next one. And I just pick a pixel that kind of like represents close to what the color looks like it is. And fill it in. Let's see. Where's that triangle? That one's already got it. And I think I got her. Let's okay, so that is one technique right there. And that is successful because all those points are snapping to this grid, which is forcing those points to get together. I'll show you another technique over here. And this is more freehand. I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to grab my pen tool, and I'm just going to create a new layer so that I can turn this layer off. And just going to, again, zoom in, and I'm going to do this little tongue area. Oops. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to turn my fill off. I'm going to make my stroke obnoxious again, green, so I can see it. And so that looks about right. So now in this situation, I'm going to turn that snapping grid off. This is going to be a little bit more freehand, so I'm going to go Illustrator, View, and I'm going to turn Snap to Grid off. Guides, what's that? Just want to see. That's so now the grid is off. And I'm just going to do the same thing where I'm drawing around. But the problem with this is now these points can be anywhere. And that makes for a more accurate drawing. As you can see, I'm able to pick exactly along the tongue. But you're going to see there's an additional sort of challenge with it. Close that off. So now you can see I've got the same issue with that point. I don't want to be hitting anything with that dash because it's going to subtract that point. So I may need to go like this, go like that, and I press escape to end that, and close that up. That says line, so I can do that one. And if I get on a good run here, then maybe I can connect these points. See that? Now that gives me a minus sign, so I'm gonna have to stop here before hitting that. I'm also gonna go like this. And I know what you're saying. The asterisk was okay there. That was safe. And asterisk is okay there. Put that on there. I know what you're thinking. You're going, well, how are all those points going to connect? Let me come down here and add one there. And add a point there. Oops. That's not working. I'm going to pull out like that and add that there. And then I got the asterisk, so that's okay. Go up to there and maybe I'll do that. I'm going to delete. Oops. Okay, so now we've got, this is the second technique, and we've got some that because it's not on those points there, we've got some of these intersections that are not correct, that are not selected. So I'm going to go to my direct select tool. And then I'm going to select all those intersections. I'm going to pull up my align tool. And there's a little bit of magic. I'm going to go center, center, and I'm going to pull all those points together. I know some people just gasped at home. You're like, oh, check this out, bang, bang, pull all those points together. We need to do this in order to unify all of our little points. It's quite a magic trick to pull off. Now, you may find that when you're doing this, there will be more of these sort of situations that maybe you're not even aware of, that I just kind of like go over and because you're freehanding it like this, right? I'm just gonna, now this does not work unless it is aligned to selection. It can't be aligned to artboard or key anchor. It has to be aligned to selection. I'm just gonna bang, bang. Oh.
I'd just like to let you know that we can't actually see any tools that aren't in your bar.
That aren't in this bar?
Yeah. Like off to the side where your layers are.
You can't see the align thing?
No.
Okay. Hang on. What about now?
No, we can.
You can?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Drop these on here. Okay, so with the align, again, I want to grab the points. See what I can. There's no point here to. So this particular point is not going to work. I'm going to. Direct select, see if I can put those together more. The freehand may have other little problems. Essentially what I was doing, I'll just so you can see, because I realized you guys didn't necessarily see that, I'll draw a few more triangles here. So let's say I go like this, because those aren't connected, but I'm going to want them to be connected, these two. Then I grab my direct select and I select both of them, and then I go to my align here, and I'm going to press these two, that one there and that one there, and it has to be on align to selection. And you just watch what happens. Bang, bang, and it ties those, it brings those points together. Okay. Then it's the same process afterwards. I can go to my layers. I can select the entire thing with this button right here. And then I go to my Pathfinder and I'm going to press divide. And then I will turn my stroke off. And then it's a matter of going back to my layers, and I just, one triangle at a time, I select it and grab my eyedropper and select the equivalent color that is going to represent that triangle. So those, I'm going to be posting, not only is this recorded, but I'm going to be posting the other tutorials that you can look through. They always give you a little bit of extra information. Everybody sort of says another little piece that kind of helps to fill in some ideas about working with this stuff. And you can see that both of those, they're slightly different ways of working, but they basically lead to the same thing. Don't expect it to go as smooth as what I just did. It will be a little bit of figuring out. You may have to come back, watch the tutorial again, and figure that stuff out. If there's no questions about Illustrator here, I'm going to move on to Pixlr and show you how to do a low poly image on Pixlr. So is there any questions before I move on? No? Okay, well then I'm gonna Where am I sharing? I'm going to pull up this. I'll go to and I will share this here. So now Pixlr, yeah, it's not Photoshop and it's not Illustrator, but it's pretty cool how much you can actually accomplish just with this browser. Basically, just coming into your Safari or Chrome or whatever. So go to pixlr.com, and I'm just going to go to the advanced photo editor. I'm going to click open image, and do I have my dog? Let me just find that dog image. Let's say this as let's go back to here, open image. Do I have doggy? Here we go. So here's my image. I just opened it up on Pixlr, and in this situation, a little bit different, but it's still non-destructive. So I actually have layers. That's right. Even on a browser, I got layers. It's sick. So I can add a new layer, and it's going to ask me what kind of layer I want. I'm just going to say empty layer, and I could rename this. Can I rename it? I think so, yeah. I'm going to call this low poly. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my background image, and I'm going up here to the lasso selection tool, and I'm going to pick polygonal lasso. And for this, you're going to want to zoom in. You're going to get rid of those advertisements as well. You're going to want to zoom in a fair amount to make life a little bit easier. This is kind of a low res image, but it doesn't matter because we're doing low poly. And it all depends on how detailed you want it to be. But if I am going to go like this, like that there, and there's my sort of like first low poly triangle. I think I exported this a little bit. This image is a little low res. And then what I tend to do is I go to the blur, and I get this blur, and I make it a yeah, I want the blur strength. Oh yeah, we want the blur strength to be maximum. And so what I usually do is I do a quick blur, and that kind of averages it out. And then I grab my eyedropper tool, which is right here, and I grab it, and then I go up into my low poly, and I fill it just with the one color. And then I come back here, I go back to my background image. Well, you don't even, you just need to go to the background image for the blurring and stuff. I'm going to go back to my selection tool here, and for speed purposes, you may want to do something like this, where I'm going to go, well, I'm going to do one triangle there, and then I'm going to do, see where I can knock off another triangle. like that. So that way I got 2 triangles, and then I will grab my background image, and again, you know, I kind of blur these. It gives me more of a sense of what would be a good color for them. Then I grab my eyedropper, and you know, I might not be able to do the 2 pixels, the two images. Yeah, it's going to shade them both in as the same. So it looks like I got to do 1 triangle at a time. Let me undo that. Come back to my, yeah, you're going to have to do the 1 triangle at a time. Grab the eyedropper, pick it, and they got keyboard shortcuts too. So once you get used to the keyboard shortcut, it will speed things along. I grab my, oops, do my next triangle here. And again, you know, we weren't doing this in Illustrator, the old blurring thing. But if you want a perfect average, then you know, that's one thing that you can do. Eyedropper, and then I think I got my layers a little bit messed up here. Clicking like crazy. Going back and forth. So then I can do this little piece here, and it's probably good to overlap them. Again, this really low res image is not really being our friend. Go to my background and grab my color, and then grab my paint bucket, go back up to my fill and click that in. Then come over here, polygon, and again, that close itself up. Grab my piece there, go back to that, and fill it in. And again, a little higher res image will go further. As they say, I don't need to probably go over every little piece, but essentially it will give you a low poly image. Now, the one thing about this with the Pixlr is when you go File, Save, if you save it as a JPEG, then it's pretty destructive. Like the layers are gone, everything is gone. You start from, you know, you start from an image that has no layers. But if you go to PXZ, this is, yes, it's going to be larger files. You can download the file, and then the next time when you come back to Pixlr, you just open up that file, and it's just like Photoshop. You get your layers back. Everything is back. Nothing is destroyed. So that way you don't have to do all your progress in one thing just because it's browser based. You can save it, come back to it later, do a little bit more work. So all right, that brings us to a close on that little presentation. Obviously, things are going to be a little bit shorter next week. I'll be tuning in just to do a review of some of this low poly stuff, but giving you some time to work on this project. But if there's no questions, I'm going to stop the recording now.